First debuting in MedaSurvivor and designed by the legendary Junya Ishigaki of Xenogears, this is MGN00 Morgan Roofe, with a kit of replay shot, hyper power missile, disturbance, float legs, and the leg ability of through shot, which grants a chance for shooting skills to ignore defense and bypass shields when attacking. Now, Morgan Roofe has definitely been in the Meta game for a little bit of time now, thanks to her introduction in MedaSurvivor as a very powerful DPS gunpowder-oriented unit. And given that she has officially made the jump to Meta S with the same kind of emphasis, that is only to be expected with the kind of power that she's bringing to the table. Being able to stall enemies with an encore state, high-powered gunpowder DPS, or even just stall people in general. This Morgan La Fey type is definitely bringing a very wide variety of skills to the table as she is officially joining the game. Replay shot on the head part is a very unique shooting ailment type skill that, when successfully damaging and attacking the target, will afflict them with an encore state. Basically, while afflicted with this encore state, the enemy in question will be forced, without any outside influence, to repeat the same completed action that they just finished for the next 3 turns or until attacked. This also means that if it was an action that they can only have completed once, such as, say, a Metaforce or charging Metaforce, or a move that was a sacrifice type of move, it will force them to basically repeat the same action and fail to do so until the state is complete. This is essentially very good for being able to kind of essentially stall enemies to a point, as if you manage to catch them doing something fairly low power or even fairly harmless that you can afford a couple turns for, this is what you can use it for. Alternatively, being able to buy yourself a couple extra turns of not having to worry about an enemy does give you a chance to kind of regroup a little bit before you can actually counter them back and cancel the encore state with basically a free attack. Right arm of hyper power missile is a gunpowder based skill that is, instead of a full AoE like standard missile, is a piercing attack. So it will damage one part and then any extra damage is carried over in chain reaction to any other healthy parts that remain. But hyper power missile in particular is just a little stronger than most others, mostly on the fact that as power missile it does get a times 1.5 damage bonus as long as Morgan Roofe's legs remain intact. But on top of that, the hyper power part of this also means that it ignores defense when attacking. So instead of the enemy trying to reduce the incoming damage and keep it as low as possible, hyper power missile bypasses any resistances at all for raw, unfiltered, fully modified damage with no resistances to come between it. And with a very impressive base power of 1814, this is definitely going to be hitting extremely hard when she actually goes to fire it. The only real weakness in particular is if anyone is using a gunpowder type guard or protection, which of course renders this move null and void. The other big weakness to hyper power missile is the fact that it does also have a no dodge and no defend penalty on cooldown. So this means that you want to be just a little bit careful when using hyper power missile so that you don't end up catching yourself and leaving yourself wide open to punish by an enemy that is just poorly timed or manages to catch your backside. Disturbance on the left arm is a setup-based skill, and is a very unique one at that with the property that it yields. Now, most setup skills can usually be very hit and miss with what they bring to the field, either as passive support or as passive aggression. Disturbance is kind of that nice little niche in between the two. Compared to, say, Shoot Trap or Fight Trap or something else in between, Disturbance, on the other hand, places a negative trap on the enemy side of the field that checks every time the enemy uses a non-attacking skill. This can be anything from a support skill providing a buff, a healing skill trying to res a fallen ally, a defense skill trying to protect allies, anything that is not directly dealing damage. Basically, anything that is not a shooting or melee or oriented type of skill is instantly nullified, cancelled, and the enemy's turn effectively wasted. This can be exceptionally useful for trying to stall any enemy supports, defenders, or healers specifically, or in many cases even enemy passive aggression that try to use traps or plants against you, much like you would against them. The only real cost to this is the fact that it does have 3 charges instead of 5 like a regular trap, but given the high potency that Disturbance does have, I really don't think that's a really big problem. Float legs means that Morgan Roofe will have very solid coverage across all terrains across the board at A rank in all of them, and the leg ability of Through Shot is really nice, as this does mean that she has the ability to bypass shields and ignore defense on all of her attacks when going to attack. Now, this may not apply too heavily to Hyper Power Missile since that already ignores defense anyway, but Replay Shot having the ability to bypass any active shields and hit exactly who they want, or hit just a little bit harder than the base power that is mentioned, is always a nice bonus to have, is always a very nice bonus to consider. As far as leg stats are concerned, though, she is fairly solid in that department too. At a base mobility of 941, she's definitely off to a good start in the speed department. So she definitely does not need a lot of help on terrain bonus or Meta-Rodder bonus or anything else of the like without anything coming in her way. An evade of 1476 is really, really good though, as this means that she can dodge or graze fairly consistently and fairly easily as long as she's not caught in a no dodge penalty or state, either from a cooldown penalty or someone that slapped her with something that prevents her from dodging. A melee resist to 736 is really not all that great though. It's kind of one of the really big pain points for her, as this does mean that anything that does get up close in her space will have a much easier time of being able to break this Fey type a lot easier than most. But a shoot resist of 1007 is just a little bit better, as this does mean that she can tank hits just a little bit better overall from the enemy pot shot from afar. However, her resistances are fairly light overall compared to most other float leg types or even just mixed range DPS in general, so a little bit of caution is advised if you are planning to use Morgan Roofe in this way. In the armor department, she is fairly diverse here as well, with a head armor of 3599, right arm of just shy of 4200, left arm at almost 3300, and legs at just over 3400. So her armor is just a little more diverse with a very light armor on that staff for her left arm. So a little bit of caution there is advised. She can definitely take a hit fairly well, but she will be fairly easy to break given that she is fairly light in the damage resistance department. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I kind of have to rate Morgan Roofe a kind of middle-of-the-road 6 out of 10. What she does fairly well, between being able to force encore states, high-power gunpowder DPS, or even wall any non-attacking enemies on the opposing side. She can do it very, very well. And Through Shot is a very nice added bonus as well, given that it does give her the ability to bypass any shields or any defenses when attacking directly with a shooting skill. But given that, like I said, Hyper Power Missile already ignores defense, you really are not going to be benefiting too heavily from Through Shot in this case. And being fairly light on the resistance, like I said, does mean it is going to be notably easier for people to take her down anytime that she's on the field. As mixed parts, though, I do have to rate her just a little bit higher at a 6.5 out of 10. While she does work fairly well as a pure set, you can definitely mix up a lot of her parts in a lot of different places to really benefit where you want to use her. Float legs with Through Shot will be really nice for any female DPS types that will be in need of that have an emphasis on shooting. Replay Shot for anyone that wants to try to force encore states for stalling, or Hyper Power Missile for your general gunpowder DPS. So you can choose to use her as a pure set fairly solidly, or as mixed parts either way, and really not go wrong how you choose to use her.